I adjusted my sunglasses, smoothed down the Italian-cut suit I'd bought specifically for this occasion, and pushed open the front door of my own house. Alina was standing in the foyer, a glass of chilled Chardonnay in one hand and a stack of glossy brochures in the other, her professional smile already plastered on her face for the incoming VIP buyer, until she saw it was me. The brochure slipped from her fingers, fluttering to the hardwood like a dying bird, and her face went so pale I thought she might actually faint right there on the Persian rug I'd paid for. My wife looked at me like she'd seen a ghost, but I was the one who had been living in a haunted house for months. But I'm getting ahead of myself. To understand why walking into my own foyer felt like stepping onto a battlefield, I have to take you back to where it all started to rot. From the outside, Elena and I were the couple people used as a benchmark for success. We'd been married for 12 years. We had the classic Tudor-style home in Oak Park, the kind with the ivy-covered brick and the original stained glass. We had a routine that felt like a warm blanket. Sunday morning coffee at that little French bakery on the corner, Friday night jazz at the Green Mill, and an anniversary trip to the same villa in Tuscany every 2 years. She was a high-end interior designer, and I was a corporate architect. We spoke the same language of aesthetics and structure. Or so I thought. The first crack, the one I ignored because I didn't want to believe my life was leaking, happened on a Tuesday in October. Alina told me she had a late-night consultation with a new client in Lake Forest. She didn't get home until 2 a.m. When she crawled into bed, she smelled like wood smoke and expensive bourbon, not the citrusy perfume she always wore, and definitely not the scent of a suburban design meeting. I remember lying there, staring at the ceiling, telling myself I was being paranoid. That should have been my first warning, but what came next was so much worse. If that had been the only thing, maybe I could have written it off as a midlife crisis or a lapse in judgment. But then the mail started disappearing. I'm the kind of guy who checks the mailbox the second I pull into the driveway, but suddenly the box was always empty by the time I got home at 5:30. When I asked Elena about it, she'd just shrug and say, "Mostly junk, Mark. I already tossed it." Then came the phone calls. She started taking them in the garden, pacing near the hydrangeas, her voice a low, urgent murmur. One afternoon, I came home early because a meeting had been canceled, and I saw a silver Mercedes SUV parked in our driveway. A man was standing on our porch, tall, polished, wearing a suit that cost more than my first car. They weren't looking at fabrics or paint swatches. They were looking at the exterior molding of my house with a clipboard in hand. When I walked up, Elena didn't even flinch. She introduced him as Julian Vance, a consultant for a historic preservation project she was working on. Julian gave me a firm, dry handshake and a look that I can only describe as predatory. I didn't know then that Julian wasn't a consultant. He was a luxury real estate broker, and he wasn't just interested in the house. I knew exactly what I was going to do the moment I found the hidden folder on our shared cloud drive. I wasn't looking for dirt. I was looking for our tax returns. Instead, I found a digital file labeled Project Phoenix. Inside were high-res photos of our home, a professionally drafted listing description, and a series of forged electronic signatures on a sales contract. My signatures. She was selling our home out from under me, and according to the dates, the exclusive VIP open house was scheduled for the following Saturday, a day she knew I'd be in Seattle for a conference.
But I didn't go to Seattle. I spent the next 3 days acting completely normal. I kissed her goodbye, I talked about my flight, and I even asked her to pick up some dry cleaning while I was away. She had no idea what was coming. I checked into a hotel 3 blocks from our house. I hired a private investigator to confirm what my gut already knew. Julian wasn't just her broker. He was her lover. They'd been planning this for months. Sell the house, take the equity, which was nearly $700,000, and disappear to a new start in Arizona before I even realized the locks had been changed. Saturday morning arrived, crisp and clear. I saw the open house sign go up from my vantage point in a rented SUV down the street. I waited until I saw 3 or 4 luxury cars pull up. This wasn't a public showing. This was an invite-only event for serious buyers. I had a friend of mine, a guy Elena had never met, call Julian's office earlier that week to register me as Mr. Sterling, a private equity lead from out of state looking for a quick cash closing. When I finally stepped out of the car, my heart was thudding against my ribs, but my hands were steady. I walked up the stone path, the one I'd shoveled every winter for a decade, and pushed open the door. The house smelled like expensive vanilla candles and fresh-baked cookies, the classic staging smell. There were about 6 people in the living room, whispering about the crown molding. Julian was standing by the fireplace, looking like he owned the place. And there was Elena, looking radiant in a cream-colored silk dress, holding that glass of wine. The moment our eyes met, the air seemed to get sucked out of the room. The ghost white I mentioned, it wasn't just a figure of speech. She literally turned the color of the marble countertops she'd picked out last year. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She looked like a fish gasping for air. "Mark?" she finally wheezed. The name was barely a whisper, but in the quiet, staged room, it sounded like a gunshot. Julian stepped forward, his professional mask flickering. "I'm sorry, sir. This is a private showing. Are you on the guest list?" I didn't look at him. I kept my eyes on my wife. "I think I'm more than just on the list, Julian," I said, my voice terrifyingly calm. "I'm the guy whose name you forged on the listing agreement. I'm the guy who pays the mortgage on the floor you're standing on. And I'm the guy who's wondering why my wife is selling my bed while I'm supposed to be in Seattle." The potential buyers froze. One woman actually put her champagne glass down and started backing toward the door. Elena finally found her voice, though it was high and brittle. "Mark, honey, let's go into the kitchen. This is a misunderstanding. I was going to surprise you. We were going to downsize. Surprise me?" I interrupted, walking slowly into the center of the room. I felt every eye on me. "You were going to surprise me by forging my signature on a legal document? By planning a move to Scottsdale with your consultant here?" I pulled a thick manila envelope from my jacket pocket. "I have the emails, Elena. I have the photos of you and Julian at the Drake Hotel. And most importantly, I have a temporary restraining order and a petition for divorce that was filed yesterday." Julian tried to play the tough guy. "Look, buddy, you need to leave. This is a business matter." I turned on him so fast he actually flinched. "It's a criminal matter, Julian. Forgery is a felony. I've already spoken to the licensing board. By Monday morning, your broker's license is going to be about as useful as the brochures my wife just dropped on the floor. Now, I suggest you get out of my house before the police, who are currently waiting around the corner, decide to come in and escort you out." Julian didn't even look at Elena. He didn't offer a word of defense. He grabbed his tablet, adjusted his jacket, and practically bolted out the front door, leaving his client and lover standing alone in the wreckage. Elena began to sob, that ugly, performative sobbing that usually made me run to comfort her. But this time, I felt nothing. Just a cold, clean sense of finality. She tried to grab my arm, her hand shaking. "Mark, please, he manipulated me. He told me we could make so much more if we did it this way. I did it for us." "You did it for yourself," I said, stepping back so she couldn't touch me. "The buyers? I suggest you leave. The show is over." The house cleared out in less than 60 seconds. It was just the two of us in the silence of the staged living room. The vanilla candle was still burning. "You have 2 hours to pack a bag," I told her. "My lawyer will handle the rest. If you're not gone by then, I'm calling the cops for the forgery. Don't test me, Elena. I've already lost the house in my head. I have nothing left to lose by putting you in a cell." She left 90 minutes later, dragging a single suitcase down the driveway she'd tried to sell. The divorce was messy, but when you have proof of a felony and a mountain of evidence regarding the affair, messy usually ends in your favor. I kept the house. I had it professionally deep cleaned, not to get rid of dirt, but to get rid of her scent and the lingering shadows of Julian's presence. Last week, I finally sat on that Persian rug with a pizza and a beer, looking at the ivy through the stained glass. The house is quiet now, but it's a good kind of quiet. It's the sound of a foundation that's finally solid again. Elena is living in a cramped apartment across the city, and from what I hear, Julian's firm dropped him the moment the ethics investigation started. People ask me if I'm bitter about the 12 years I wasted. I tell them no. I didn't lose 12 years. I gained the rest of my life. And the view from my front porch has never looked better.